Emily sat alone in her dimly lit kitchen, staring at the divorce papers spread across the table. The once vibrant walls seemed to close in on her, the laughter and love that once filled the space now distant memories. Her hands trembled as she traced her name on the dotted line, the ink smudged by the tears she fought to hold back. Brian, her husband of 12 years, had shattered her world with cold indifference. "I need someone who inspires me," he'd said, his voice devoid of remorse. "Someone who's not ordinary like you." Those words echoed in her mind, cutting through her like a knife. She had sacrificed so much for him, setting aside her dreams to support his career. Emily had once been a vibrant woman, brimming with ambition and talent, but years of putting Brian's needs first had left her a shadow of herself. Now, after discovering his affair with Samantha, his glamorous young colleague, she was left to piece together the fragments of her life. The betrayal wasn't just an affair, it was a condemnation of her very essence. Brian hadn't just stopped loving her, he mocked her, calling her unremarkable and ordinary. His words stung worse than the betrayal itself. Samantha's smug smile flashed in Emily's mind, the image of the woman who had stepped so effortlessly into a role she'd spent years nurturing. Brian didn't just want someone new, he wanted someone he could flaunt. Outside, the wind howled, swirling leaves against the window. It mirrored the storm within Emily. Her reflection in the glass was almost unrecognizable, her hair pulled back hastily, her face pale from sleepless nights. She glanced at her hands, calloused from years of unnoticed labor, and resolved that she wouldn't let Brian's betrayal define her. As much as it hurt, this was a chance to rediscover herself, to rebuild what he had torn down. Emily took a deep breath, signing the papers with a steadiness that surprised even her. The past was over, but the future was hers to reclaim. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a life where she wasn't defined by someone else's expectations. The seeds of a quiet determination took root, though she couldn't yet foresee just how much she would transform in the days to come. The next morning, Emily walked through the bustling streets of her small town, her mind heavy with thoughts of the court hearing ahead. The sun cast long shadows, and the whispers of passing strangers seemed louder than usual. She had always prided herself on being resilient, but the prospect of facing Brian and Samantha in court filled her with dread. It wasn't just about the divorce, it was about proving she was more than the version of herself they belittled. The courthouse loomed ahead, its steps worn from years of footsteps carrying stories of broken promises and shattered lives. Emily paused at the base, clutching the strap of her purse tightly. She caught sight of Brian's luxury car parked out front. Samantha stood beside it, her manicured fingers twirling her hair as she laughed at something Brian said. They looked like a power couple straight out of a magazine, their confidence a sharp contrast to Emily's plain, modest attire. She adjusted her coat, feeling the weight of their judgment even from across the street. As she entered the courtroom, Emily felt the eyes of the room settle on her. Brian's mother, Jessica, sat with a smug expression, her gaze scanning Emily from head to toe. Samantha whispered something to Jessica, and they both chuckled quietly. Emily clenched her fists, determined not to let their disdain shake her. But as Brian's lawyer began his opening statements, portraying her as a dependent, uninspired wife, the humiliation she tried to suppress bubbled to the surface. The hearing dragged on, with Brian's lawyer painting a picture of Emily that bore little resemblance to reality. She was described as someone who had coasted through life on Brian's coattails, offering nothing of value to their partnership. Brian sat smugly, occasionally whispering to Samantha, who seemed to relish every word. Emily's lawyer countered with facts and evidence, but the damage was done. The courtroom seemed to absorb Brian's narrative, leaving Emily feeling smaller with each passing moment. During a recess, Emily slipped out to the hallway, needing air. The stifling weight of the courtroom felt unbearable. She leaned against the cool marble wall, her breath shaky. A tear slipped down her cheek, and she quickly wiped it away, unwilling to let anyone see her vulnerability. This was what Brian wanted, to break her, to leave her doubting herself. She wouldn't give him that satisfaction. Her thoughts turned to the woman she had once been, a dreamer with a passion for art, someone who found beauty in the smallest details. That version of herself felt like a distant memory, buried under years of sacrifice and self-doubt. But as she stood there, something shifted. The anger and pain inside her began to morph into something else, resolve. If Brian thought she was unremarkable, she would prove him wrong, not for his approval, but for herself. The world seemed to quiet as Emily made a silent vow. She would no longer let others define her worth. The courtroom, with its judgmental stares and whispered mockery, would not be her battleground. She would fight in her own way, using the one thing Brian and his circle had always underestimated, her talent. That evening, Emily returned to her apartment, her mind racing with thoughts of the day. She glanced around the modest space, her eyes landing on a dusty box tucked away in the corner of her closet. With hesitant hands, she pulled it out, brushing off years of neglect. Inside were remnants of a life she had almost forgotten, sketchbooks filled with drawings, tubes of dried paint, and photographs of her early works. Emily flipped through her old sketchbooks, her fingers brushing over the pages with a mix of nostalgia and regret. The last time she had held a pencil with purpose was years ago, before Brian had convinced her that her art was a hobby unworthy of serious attention. Yet, as she stared at the empty pages at the back of the book, she felt a spark of inspiration. She retrieved a pencil and, for the first time in years, began to draw. Hours passed, and by the time she looked up, the first hints of dawn were creeping through the window. The drawing wasn't perfect, but it was hers, a small act of defiance against the narrative Brian had tried to impose on her. Emily decided she wouldn't stop there. She would rebuild herself piece by piece, even if it meant starting from nothing. She didn't yet know where this path would lead, but she knew one thing: she wasn't going to give up. Emily spent the next week balancing her preparation for the divorce trial with her renewed passion for art. She worked late into the night, practicing techniques she hadn't used in years, sketching portraits and landscapes, and experimenting with bold, vibrant colors. Her kitchen table became her makeshift studio, cluttered with brushes, pencils, and sheets of paper. Each completed piece felt like a step toward reclaiming her identity. During one of her late-night sessions, Emily stumbled upon an online marketplace for artists. Browsing through the platform, she saw others selling their work, some for modest sums, others for prices that made her eyes widen. A new thought emerged: could she sell her art? It seemed impossible at first, but the more she researched, the more the idea took shape. If nothing else, it would be a way to support herself after the divorce. Clara, her childhood friend, was the first person she confided in about her plan. Over coffee, Emily showed her a few sketches, her voice tinged with nervous excitement. Clara's eyes lit up as she flipped through the pages. "Emily, these are incredible," she said. "Why didn't you tell me you were this talented?" Clara offered to help her set up a profile on the marketplace, and within days, Emily uploaded her first collection. She held her breath as she clicked publish, feeling both exhilarated and terrified. Emily didn't expect much from her online store at first. She had uploaded her artwork with a mix of hope and trepidation, convinced it would be weeks, if not months, before anyone even noticed her page. But to her astonishment, within days, she received her first order. A customer had purchased one of her hand-drawn portraits, leaving a glowing review that praised the warmth and emotion in her work. As Emily packaged the piece for shipping, she couldn't help but smile. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental. For the first time in years, she saw her talent through someone else's eyes, unclouded by Brian's dismissive remarks. More orders followed, each one bringing a small boost to her confidence. Customers left kind comments, describing how her art made them feel, and slowly, Emily began to believe in herself again. One evening, as she worked on a commissioned piece, Emily paused to look around her apartment. The cluttered space, once a source of frustration, now felt alive with purpose. Her sketchbooks and brushes covered the kitchen table, and completed pieces leaned against the walls, waiting to be shipped. She wasn't just rediscovering her passion, she was building a foundation for a new life. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she was moving forward. Emily's newfound success in art brought a sense of empowerment she hadn't expected. With each completed order, she felt herself standing a little taller, her confidence growing bit by bit. But the looming court date reminded her that she wasn't out of the woods yet. While her art gave her hope, the thought of facing Brian and his legal team filled her with anxiety. Determined not to let them undermine her progress, Emily focused on preparing for the trial. She worked closely with her lawyer, gathering evidence of Brian's infidelity and financial mismanagement. Late into the night, she sifted through years of bank statements and receipts, piecing together a timeline that painted a clear picture of his deceit. It was exhausting, but Emily was fueled by a sense of justice she hadn't felt before. Her lawyer, a sharp and empathetic woman named Linda, encouraged Emily to take her time and trust the process. "You have more power than you think," Linda told her during one of their meetings. "Brian underestimated you, but that will be his biggest mistake." Emily nodded, her resolve strengthening. She wasn't just fighting for a fair settlement, she was fighting to reclaim her dignity. The day of the hearing arrived, and Emily walked into the courtroom with her head held high. She wore a sleek, tailored dress, nothing extravagant, but enough to make a statement. Gone was the timid woman Brian had once dismissed. Her quiet confidence turned heads, and even Brian seemed momentarily unsettled by her presence. As the proceedings began, Brian's lawyer launched into a narrative designed to paint Emily as a dependent, uninspired wife who had contributed little to the marriage. Brian sat with his arms crossed, a smug smile on his face, while Samantha whispered in his ear. Emily clenched her fists under the table, willing herself to stay calm. This was her moment to prove them wrong. When it was her turn to speak, Emily rose, clutching a slim portfolio in her hands. "Your Honor," she began, her voice steady but charged with emotion, "I've been called many things in this courtroom: unremarkable, dependent, invisible. Today, I stand to present the truth about myself." She opened the portfolio, revealing vibrant photographs of her artwork and detailed records of her growing online business. Gasps rippled through the courtroom as Emily explained her journey. "I was told I was nothing, but these pieces are my voice. They are my life's work, built in the quiet hours while my sacrifices were dismissed as meaningless." The judge leaned forward, examining the evidence with keen interest. Brian shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his composure cracking for the first time. Emily turned to him, her tone unwavering. "You mocked me for my silence, but it was in that silence I found my strength. You believed I needed you to succeed. The truth is, I succeeded despite you." The courtroom was silent as the judge deliberated, flipping through the pages of Emily's portfolio. The weight of her words hung in the air, leaving an indelible impression on everyone present. After what felt like an eternity, the judge spoke. "Mrs. Taylor," he began, his tone measured, "your resilience and contributions are commendable. The evidence presented here makes it clear that you were not only a supportive partner but also a talented individual in your own right." The ruling came down in Emily's favor. She was awarded a substantial settlement that acknowledged her financial and emotional contributions to the marriage. Brian's lawyer tried to protest, but the judge silenced him with a firm glance. Brian slumped in his chair, his smug demeanor completely gone. Samantha, visibly uncomfortable, avoided eye contact with anyone. Outside the courthouse, Emily felt a rush of emotions: relief, pride, and a deep sense of vindication. Reporters crowded around her, eager for a statement, but she declined to speak. This victory wasn't for them, it was for herself. As she walked down the steps, the weight she had carried for so long seemed to lift. The life she had built in silence was finally being seen, and for the first time, she felt truly free. News of the courtroom showdown spread quickly. A journalist covering the hearing posted an article titled "The Rise of Emily Taylor, From Humiliation to Triumph," which quickly went viral. Social media buzzed with praise for Emily's resilience, and her online art store saw a surge of activity. Customers from around the world reached out, sharing how her story had inspired them. While Emily's star was rising, Brian's was falling. Colleagues and acquaintances distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with the man whose arrogance had been laid bare in court. Even Samantha seemed to grow weary of him, their once glamorous relationship strained under the weight of public scrutiny. Brian, who had always thrived on control and admiration, found himself increasingly isolated. Emily, meanwhile, focused on her art. She used the newfound attention to expand her business, collaborating with other artists and exploring new creative ventures. But more than the success, she cherished the freedom she had gained, the freedom to be herself, to follow her passions, and to build a life on her own terms. Each day felt like a step towards something greater, and Emily knew she was just getting started. Not long after the trial, Emily received an unexpected visitor. Jessica, Brian's mother, stood at her door, clutching a box of pastries and wearing an expression Emily had never seen before: humility. For years, Jessica had looked down on Emily, treating her as though she were never good enough for Brian. Now, she seemed smaller, her usual air of superiority replaced by uncertainty. "Emily, I know I'm the last person you want to see," Jessica began, her voice hesitant. She placed the box on the counter and wrung her hands nervously. "But I needed to speak with you. I know things ended badly with Brian, but I've realized I was unfair to you. You didn't deserve the way I treated you." Emily crossed her arms, unsure of what to say. This woman had been one of her harshest critics, and now she was seeking absolution. Jessica sighed, her gaze dropping to the floor. "I thought supporting Brian meant undermining you. I see now how wrong I was. You've accomplished so much, and you've proven you were always more than enough. I just wanted to apologize." Her words were unexpected, but Emily remained guarded. "Thank you for saying that," Emily replied evenly. "I hope you'll remember this moment if you ever find yourself judging someone else." Jessica nodded, her lips tightening as though holding back tears. She turned to leave but stopped at the door. "I hope you find happiness, Emily. You deserve it." Emily watched her go, feeling a mixture of closure and relief. Jessica's apology wouldn't erase the past, but it was a reminder that even the harshest critics could be forced to confront their mistakes. A week after Jessica's visit, Emily found an envelope in her mailbox. Inside was a handwritten letter from Jessica, along with a check for a substantial amount. The note read, Emily, I know I can't undo the harm I caused, but I hope this can be a small step toward making amends. Please use it for your art or anything else that brings you joy. You've shown incredible strength, and I truly admire you. Jessica. Emily sat at her kitchen table, staring at the letter. For years, Jessica had been one of the loudest voices in the chorus of people who doubted her. This gesture, while unexpected, felt like a final acknowledgement of Emily's worth. After some thought, Emily decided to use the money to expand her emerging resilience project, which she had dreamed of starting to support struggling artists. The project quickly took shape. Emily reached out to fellow creatives, offering mentorship and resources to those who needed a platform to share their work. With each step, she felt a sense of purpose she hadn't known before. Jessica's gift had become a tool for good, transforming guilt into growth, not just for Emily, but for the artists she aimed to uplift. Months later, Emily prepared for her first solo exhibit, Resilience in Color. The gallery buzzed with anticipation as art enthusiasts and critics filled the space, marveling at the vibrant pieces on display. Each painting told a story of Emily's journey, her struggles, her triumphs, and the moments of quiet determination that had shaped her path. Lydia, the gallery curator, approached Emily with a warm smile. "This is incredible," she said. "You've poured your soul into these pieces, and it shows." Emily felt a swell of pride as she looked around the room. Strangers admired her work, their conversations filled with awe and appreciation. This was more than an exhibit, it was a testament to her resilience and creativity. Among the attendees was a man in a sharp suit who introduced himself as Michael Grant, a prominent art collector. "Your work is extraordinary," he said, handing her his card. "I'd like to commission a piece for my private collection." Emily accepted the card with gratitude, her confidence growing with each interaction. She had once been dismissed as ordinary, but now, she was a celebrated artist with a voice that resonated far beyond the courtroom. At the exhibit, Emily reconnected with someone from her past, Alex, Clara's younger brother. Alex had been the quiet, artistic kid who often tagged along when Clara and Emily worked on school projects. Now, he stood before her, an accomplished architect with a portfolio of innovative designs and a warm smile. "I've been following your work," Alex said, his voice filled with admiration. "It's amazing, Emily. I'd love to collaborate on something someday." His enthusiasm sparked a connection, and the two spent the evening discussing their creative visions. Alex shared his ideas for blending architecture and art, and Emily found herself inspired by his passion and insight. As the night went on, their conversation deepened. Emily hadn't realized how much she missed talking to someone who truly understood her creative spirit. Alex's kindness and sincerity reminded her of the friendships she had cherished before her marriage to Brian. By the end of the evening, Emily felt a spark of possibility, not just for their work, but for the person she was becoming. Emily and Alex began collaborating on their first joint project, a public installation that combined his architectural expertise with her artistic vision. The idea was ambitious, a park installation that celebrated resilience through interactive art and design. Together, they brainstormed ideas late into the night, sketching plans and imagining how their work could inspire others. The project quickly gained momentum, drawing attention from local officials and community leaders. Emily found herself thriving in the partnership, her confidence growing with each step. Alex's encouragement and respect for her ideas were a stark contrast to the dismissiveness she had endured with Brian. For the first time in years, she felt truly seen and valued. Their collaboration wasn't without challenges, but each obstacle only strengthened their bond. Alex's calm problem-solving balanced Emily's bursts of creativity, and together, they pushed the project to new heights. When the installation was finally unveiled, it was met with overwhelming praise. Visitors marveled at the seamless blend of art and architecture, and Emily knew this was just the beginning of a new chapter in her life. One evening, while reorganizing her studio, Emily stumbled upon an old box tucked away in the corner of a closet. Dust covered its lid, and the sight of it sent a pang through her chest. She hesitated before opening it, unsure of the emotions it would stir. Inside, she found photographs, letters, and mementos from her marriage to Brian, fragments of a life she had left behind. The photographs told a story she barely recognized. There were smiling vacation snapshots and candid moments from their early years, but they felt hollow now, tainted by the knowledge of what came later. Emily lingered on one picture in particular, her younger self, sitting at an easel, paintbrush in hand, while Brian looked on with a dismissive smirk. She remembered how he belittled her art even then, calling it a cute little hobby. Instead of throwing the items away, Emily decided to transform them. She cut and repurposed the photos, using them as the foundation for a new series of collages. Each piece blended elements of her past with bold, vibrant colors that represented her present and future. When the series debuted at her next exhibit, critics praised the collages as deeply personal and emotionally evocative. For Emily, they were more than just art, they were a declaration of her growth. As Emily's art career flourished, her past reappeared in an unexpected way. At the opening of her latest exhibit, she noticed Brian standing in the corner of the gallery, looking out of place among the crowd. He approached her hesitantly, his confident demeanor replaced by awkward uncertainty. "Emily," he began, his voice low, "I just wanted to say congratulations. You've really done something incredible." Emily regarded him coolly. "Thank you," she replied, her tone polite but distant. Brian shifted uncomfortably, as if searching for the right words. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," he said. "About how I treated you. I was wrong, and I'm sorry." His apology caught her off guard, but it didn't move her. She had long since stopped seeking validation from him. "I appreciate the sentiment," she said evenly, "but I've moved on." As Brian nodded and walked away, Emily felt a profound sense of closure. The chapter of her life that had been defined by him was well and truly over. Weeks later, Emily attended a gala celebrating the completion of her latest collaboration with Alex, a museum installation dedicated to stories of resilience. The event was packed with art enthusiasts, journalists, and community leaders, all eager to see the innovative blend of architecture and art. The centerpiece of the installation was one of Emily's largest works to date, a sprawling mural that wove together narratives of struggle and triumph. As Emily stood by the mural, she listened to visitors share their interpretations of the piece. A woman approached her, tears in her eyes. "Your work reminds me of my own journey," she said. "It's like you've captured my story without even knowing me." Emily felt a swell of pride and gratitude. This was why she created art, not for fame, but to connect with others on a deeply human level. When Alex joined her on stage to accept an award for the installation, Emily reflected on how far she had come. The timid woman who had once been humiliated in court now stood before a crowd, celebrated for her vision and strength. The applause was thunderous, but the most meaningful part of the night was the quiet understanding between her and Alex. They had built something extraordinary together. Inspired by her own struggles, Emily decided to launch a mentorship program for aspiring artists facing personal and professional challenges. She named it Emerging Resilience, a tribute to her journey and the people who had helped her along the way. The program provided resources, workshops, and a platform for artists to showcase their work. Emily's first group of men came from diverse backgrounds, each with their own story of hardship and perseverance. There was Sophie, a young painter whose family had dismissed her talent as impractical, and Daniel, a sculptor recovering from a debilitating accident. Emily worked closely with each of them, offering guidance and encouragement while learning from their resilience in turn. The program quickly gained traction, attracting attention from philanthropists and organizations eager to support its mission. Emily found joy not only in her own art but in helping others find their voices. Watching her men thrive was a reminder of the transformative power of creativity, and it deepened her sense of purpose. As emerging resilience expanded, Emily began traveling to speak at conferences and lead workshops. Her story resonated with audiences around the world, and she became a sought-after advocate for the arts. Each trip brought new opportunities and connections, but her favorite moments were those spent in her studio, creating alongside her men's. The mentorship program produced a ripple effect, with graduates going on to launch their own initiatives and projects. Sophie opened a gallery that featured underrepresented artists, while Daniel designed a public sculpture that became a beloved landmark in his city. Emily marveled at the impact they were making, knowing that her efforts had played a small part in their success. Despite her growing fame, Emily remained grounded. She often reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point, the pain, the challenges, and the triumphs that had shaped her into the woman she was. Her legacy wasn't just in the art she created but in the lives she touched and the inspiration she sparked. And as she looked ahead, she knew her work was far from finished. As Emily's life continued to flourish, so did her connection with Alex. Their creative collaborations deepened their bond, and before long, they began spending more time together outside of work. Alex's gentle encouragement and unwavering belief in Emily's talent brought out a side of her she hadn't felt in years, hopeful, confident, and open to new possibilities. One evening, after finishing a long day working on a new installation, Alex invited Emily to join him for dinner. Over a simple meal in his cozy apartment, they talked about their dreams and fears, their laughter filling the room. Emily found herself drawn to his authenticity, his willingness to listen, and his ability to see her for who she truly was, not just the artist or the resilient woman, but the person she was beneath it all. As their relationship blossomed, Emily marveled at how different it was from her past. With Alex, there was no competition, no condescension, only mutual respect and a shared passion for creating. Their love became a source of inspiration for Emily, and she poured that newfound joy into her art. For the first time in a long time, she felt truly whole. Emily's work reached new heights when she was invited to deliver the keynote address at an international art conference. The invitation was a testament to her growing influence in the art world, and though the prospect of speaking to a room full of experts made her nervous, Emily knew she couldn't pass up the opportunity. On the day of the conference, she stood backstage, clutching her notes. Memories of the courtroom flooded her mind, the stares, the whispers, the weight of humiliation she had once carried. But as she stepped onto the stage, the applause from the audience reminded her how far she had come. Taking a deep breath, Emily began to speak. She shared her journey, from the woman who had been dismissed as ordinary to the artist who had reclaimed her identity. Resilience isn't just about surviving, she said, her voice steady. It's about creating something beautiful from the struggles we face, about finding our voice when others try to silence it. The room erupted into applause when she finished, and Emily felt a surge of pride. She had once been silenced, but now, her voice carried far beyond the walls of any courtroom. Emily and Alex's latest project, a museum installation dedicated to stories of resilience, became the culmination of everything they had worked toward. The installation featured a blend of Emily's powerful murals and Alex's architectural designs, creating an immersive experience that celebrated human strength and creativity. The opening night was a resounding success, drawing visitors from across the city. Each section of the installation told a unique story, from the struggles of underrepresented communities to the triumphs of individuals who had overcome incredible odds. Emily's centerpiece, a massive mural depicting intertwined figures rising from broken chains, left many visitors in tears. During the event, one of Emily's men approached her, beaming with pride. "This is incredible," the young woman said. "You've shown us what's possible when we believe in ourselves." Emily hugged her, overwhelmed by gratitude. The installation wasn't just a milestone for her career, it was a testament to the collective power of resilience. After the installation's success, Emily found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this moment. Late one night, she sat alone in her studio, surrounded by sketches and unfinished pieces. The quiet allowed her mind to wander, revisiting the years of struggle, heartbreak, and self-doubt that had once defined her life. She thought about the woman she had been when she first met Brian, eager to please, willing to set aside her own dreams for the sake of his. That woman had endured so much, but she had also paved the way for the person Emily had become. Her pain had been real, but so was her strength, and it was that strength that had carried her forward. Emily reached for her sketchbook and began to draw, her pencil moving effortlessly across the page. The image that emerged was one of transformation, a phoenix rising from the ashes, its wings spread wide. It was a metaphor for her journey, a symbol of everything she had overcome. As she finished the piece, Emily felt a profound sense of peace. She had made it through the fire, and she was stronger for it. One afternoon, Emily received an email from an address she didn't recognize. Opening it, she was surprised to find a message from Brian. His tone was uncharacteristically humble, the words carefully chosen. "Emily," the email began, "I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, but I need to say this. I was wrong. About everything." Brian went on to apologize for the ways he had belittled her and taken her for granted. He admitted that his arrogance and insecurities had driven him to mistreat her, and he expressed genuine regret for the pain he had caused. "You deserved better," he wrote. "And I hope you've found it." Emily read the email twice, her emotions a mix of surprise, anger, and pity. Brian's apology, though long overdue, didn't change the past. But it wasn't forgiveness he sought that mattered, it was Emily's ability to let go of the last remnants of anger she held toward him. She chose not to respond, knowing she didn't owe him anything. Her silence was her answer, a final act of closure for a chapter of her life she had long since outgrown. One of Emily and Alex's most ambitious projects came to life in the form of a public park installation. The project, a vibrant blend of architecture and art, celebrated community resilience and unity. The park featured sprawling murals, interactive sculptures, and pathways lined with inspiring quotes from local residents who had overcome hardships. On the day of the park's unveiling, hundreds of visitors gathered to witness the dedication ceremony. Emily watched as families explored the space, children running between the sculptures while adults marveled at the artistry. The centerpiece of the park, a towering sculpture of interwoven hands reaching toward the sky, became an instant symbol of hope for the community. During the event, a young girl approached Emily, clutching a sketchbook. "I want to be an artist like you," she said shyly. Emily knelt down, her heart swelling with pride. "You already are," she replied, flipping through the girl's drawings and offering words of encouragement. The moment reminded Emily why she did what she did, to inspire others to see the beauty in themselves and the world around them. One afternoon, while browsing an art supply store, Emily noticed a familiar face. Samantha stood by a display of paintbrushes, her expression subdued. Gone was the polished, confident woman Emily remembered from the courtroom. Instead, Samantha seemed hesitant, almost uncertain of herself. Samantha noticed Emily and froze, clearly unsure of how to approach her. After an awkward pause, she muttered, "Emily, I didn't expect to see you here." Her voice lacked the arrogance Emily had once associated with her. Samantha glanced at the brushes in her hand, then back at Emily. "I've been trying to reconnect with something creative," she admitted. "I didn't think you'd believe me." Emily regarded her with a mixture of curiosity and pity. "Art has a way of helping us find ourselves," she said simply, before turning back to the aisle. Samantha didn't stop her, and Emily didn't look back. The encounter left Emily feeling strangely at peace. Samantha's journey was her own, and Emily had no desire to dwell on the past. She had moved on, and it was clear Samantha was searching for her own path forward. As Emily's work continued to gain recognition, opportunities to exhibit her art in international galleries began to pour in. Each new invitation felt like a milestone, a reminder of how far she had come from the woman who had once doubted her worth. Accompanied by Alex, who now played an integral role in her life and career, Emily traveled to cities she had only dreamed of visiting. In Paris, her mural depicting themes of resilience and renewal drew crowds to a historic gallery. In Tokyo, her interactive installation invited visitors to contribute their own stories of perseverance, creating a living tapestry of shared experiences. Each exhibit was a celebration of her journey and the universal power of human strength. Despite her growing fame, Emily remained grounded. She continued to mentor young artists through emerging resilience, finding joy in their successes as much as her own. Her mentor often marveled at her humility, describing her as both an inspiration and a friend. For Emily, this balance between personal achievement and giving back was what made her journey truly fulfilling. Years later, Emily stood at the entrance of a gala held in her honor. The event celebrated the 10th anniversary of Emerging Resilience, now a global initiative supporting thousands of artists worldwide. The room was filled with familiar faces, men who had become mentors, collaborators who had become friends, and communities whose lives had been touched by her work. As Emily took the stage to deliver her speech, she felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. "When I started this journey," she began, her voice steady, "I didn't know where it would lead. But every challenge, every setback, every triumph has brought me to this moment. And what I've learned is that resilience isn't just about surviving, it's about transforming. It's about taking what's broken and making it beautiful." The crowd erupted into applause as Emily stepped down, Alex meeting her with a proud smile. Together, they looked around the room, a testament to the impact they had made. For Emily, the gala wasn't just a celebration of her past, it was a promise of the possibilities still ahead. One sunny afternoon, Emily visited a park that featured one of her earliest installations with Alex. The sculpture of interwoven hands stood tall, surrounded by blooming flowers and children playing nearby. Emily sat on a bench, watching as people interacted with the space she had helped create. A young woman approached her, holding a sketch pad. "Excuse me," the woman said, her voice tinged with nervousness. "I just wanted to say thank you. Your work, it changed my life. It gave me the courage to pursue art when I thought I couldn't." Emily smiled warmly, her heart full. "Art has a way of finding us when we need it most," she said. As the young woman walked away, Emily reflected on the countless lives her work had touched. She had built a legacy not just through her art but through the hope and strength she had inspired in others. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the park, Emily felt a deep sense of peace. Her journey had been one of pain and triumph, of loss and renewal, but above all, it had been one of transformation. The timid woman who had once been mocked and dismissed was now a symbol of resilience, her story a beacon for anyone searching for strength in the face of adversity. And as she rose to leave, Emily knew her journey wasn't over. The path ahead was still unwritten, but she was ready to face it with open arms and a heart full of hope.